Welcome to Built to Win, the podcast created to help you level up your business game by developing a success mindset that's made for the long run. In our first episode, A Conversation on Leadership, you'll hear from respected business founders and leaders Jeff Olson, Deborah Heise, Amber Olson-Rourke, and Dave Fleming about how the challenges they faced throughout their lives and careers prepared them for an historic business battle that no other executive team has successfully walked through. You'll also learn what they did throughout that battle to stay positive and true to their guiding principles, even in their darkest hours. Let's have a listen.
Hello, I'm Amber Olson-Rourke, and welcome to the Built to Win podcast. We are so excited to bring you practical advice from the battlefield of business and really share our own personal and professional journeys with you. So first, a little bit about me. I am the co-founder and chief sales and marketing officer for Neura. I'm a mom to three amazing girls. They are 7, 5, and 2, so definitely still in the thick of it. And I'm really passionate about empowering women to step into their full potential, which is a really big component of my career. I lead thousands of women, helping them to learn how to become successful entrepreneurs. And so we're going to first talk about what Built to Win means to each of us individually, and then I'm going to introduce you to some of my co-hosts. So to me, being built to win is really having the core components that it takes to walk through any challenge. That means the values, the mindset, the attitude, the skill set, the work ethic, all of the things that come together that allow you to be able to meet any challenge head on. And so we're going to really dive into each of those buckets throughout this podcast and talk about how you can take practical steps to allow you to be built to win for anything that comes your way. Because if you are doing something big, if you're an entrepreneur, if you have big goals, if you're trying to do something different, I think we can all attest that there's one thing for sure is that you will meet challenges, you will meet obstacles, and it's how you walk through those things. And not just in a theoretical way. We've all walked through really hard things in our careers. So we're going to walk you through how we've done just that. So let me introduce you to some of my co-hosts. I'm really excited for you to get to know them. First of all, Jeff Olson is one of our co-hosts. He's a well-known thought leader, successful entrepreneur. He's the best-selling author of The Slight Edge. This is a book that has a massive following in the business world, in the sports world, in universities, just lots of different applications, because it is really a book about everyday life that's practical on the philosophy on how to create powerful results from simple daily actions. Jeff has founded several successful businesses over the past 35 years, and he's currently the co-founder of Live Happy, as well as the founder and CEO of Neura. And I believe most importantly, he's also my father and the Joe Pa to my 3 girls. So please welcome Jeff Olson. And Jeff, if you can share what you believe being built to win as a leader means to you personally.
Well, Amber, gladly. And yes, I love your 3 daughters and you as well. But with that, to me, leadership, I think we all have a tendency to really focus on activities when we really should be focusing more on philosophy and mindset of people. You know, one of my things I always say to myself is the definition of leader is the ability to get somebody to do something they would not have done if you hadn't been there. And that really begins with you, the person you look in the mirror. Another thing I always say to myself is people, if they want to follow somebody, if they're looking to somebody that they believe in enough to follow, they want to know that that person actually knows who they are, they know where they're going, and they know how they're going to get there. So you're definitive more than anything else. And so as a leader, I think what we work on more than anything is mindset. Okay, mindset is how you look at life. You know, when we started this company, we built it with 10 core values. These core values became the philosophy of our company. Every great human being or every great corporation I've ever seen has an identity, because all a company is a group of people who come together synergistically around a common goal, and they can do more together than they could ever do by themselves. Okay, and so what a good company has a philosophy, or a good person has a philosophy. And philosophy is basically everything you know, how you hold it, and how it affects you. And one of the biggest things that is going to drive a person's philosophy is the laws of association, people that they associate with the most. And so that's part of a corporation. As a leader, you're putting together that core group of people that their laws of association, they make each other better, not worse. Okay, so When you work on mindset, that starts working on the belief. It starts changing people's attitudes. And when you can shift a person's attitude, we just came out of a huge challenge that we've been through as a company, a couple of different ones. But one of the biggest things is you want to keep your employees' mindset. You want to keep their attitude up, but they got to have a vision. They got to have something they believe in. So you're really like you're the host to their belief. You're the host to their vision. And if you can get that done, what happens, even in the hardest of times, people's visions start growing, their goals start growing, their dreams and aspirations, even in the middle of bad things, get bigger. And what that does, it leads to proper activities. And when activities happen, that's what precedes you get the results you want. So, I've always said it's not the hows, it's how you do the hows. And people have a good philosophy, they're going to have a good attitude. That's going to turn into good actions, turn into good results, and turn into good lifestyle. And I believe what happens with a lot of people, when you have something big in front of you, a big challenge, you're trying to think how to brick and mortar fix that versus working on the mindset of the people that will fix that. Okay. Knowing that collectively together, you're way more powerful than you are individually trying to deal with it. And what happens a lot of times with challenges, you have a tendency to start going into silos. People start having a tendency to point at other people. You can't have that. It's like a team that's rallying around their coach, and they don't go into the huddle and point bad things to each other. They're collectively on the same playbook. They're doing the same play. They all have their assignments that they have to do. So as a good leader, that's what you got to do. You got to get people, doing things that can make a difference. You got to give them an atmosphere that really shifts their philosophy in a positive way. And like I said earlier, one of the best things we did is had 10 core values before we launched this one company. And those core values became the philosophy of the company. And those things withstood the test of time as we went through the great times. And we've had some great times. Then went through some of the biggest challenges I've ever seen anybody go through in American history in business. And those philosophies held us through that. So for me, it's all in the mindset. It's all in how you get people to do things they would not have been able to do without the environment you put them into and the activities you led with.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yes. And I guess I should have mentioned too that all of the hosts here work together. So we are a collective executive team, as well as we have some other amazing executives alongside us, but we all have really varied backgrounds. So we have shared experiences and also differences in our previous work history. So our next co-host is Deborah Heiss, and she is the co-founder and CEO of Live Happy. They have an award-winning Live Happy Now podcast. She's also the former editor-in-chief of Success Magazine. She is the author of the book Live Happy: 10 Practices for Choosing Joy, and also the co-CEO of Neora. She's also a parent, a lifelong student of personal development, and she's really passionate about helping people build happier lives. So, Deb, share with us, for you, what being built to win as a leader means.
Thanks, Amber. So, the biggest thing about being built to win is it's not something you do in the moment. It's something you have to have prepared for. It's something something you've worked towards, because you don't know when the crisis is going to show up. You don't know when the big thing in your life is going to suddenly appear. You have to have taken the steps for you and your team to be ready to take on those challenges when they hit you, because there's no foreshadowing. Life just happens. It doesn't just, you don't know that this is going to happen. It just does. And so for me, the essential elements of being built to win are, first, and Jeff touched on this very well, you have to know yourself. You have to have your personal philosophy. You have to know who you are. And you have to be true to yourself as a leader. And a lot of that is integrity to me. You have to be able to know that you're going to do the best you can and not be trying to figure out how am I going to attack a problem. Because from a philosophical perspective, from a tactical perspective, of course, we all think about that. But philosophically, you have to know that when the problem hits, your first action is going to be reacting to it, not running around in a circle in a panic. And the same is true for your team. Your team needs to know that about you. You have to have built and fostered trust over time. One of the great things about our team, about this team on this call and the broader team at the company is we work together. We trust each other. We have transparency, and not just transparency of vision, which is critical. We all need to know where we're going and what we're trying to accomplish. Transparency of how we interact with each other. We're real. One of our big philosophies here at the company is be real. Be who you are, contribute, be honest, be truthful, be transparent, have the difficult conversation. All of those things need to be instilled in your team before the crisis shows up. So you have to live that before the crisis occurs. And for me, that's what it means to be built to win as a leader, building a team that functions at a high level with trust, with integrity, with compassion for each other. And you can really take on any goal and accomplish things you could never imagine you could accomplish if you've put the time and the effort into creating that environment. So for me, that's why we're built to win, is we have that with each other. We have that with the company. We have that throughout our entire organization. And it's really important to me that we maintain that through any crisis. And I'm really proud of the way we responded and proud of everything we did. And it's been a great ride of overcoming huge challenges. But also it's great to work every day together. So, being built to win is really about building a team, not about being built to win individually.
Love that. So, so true. And our last co-host, Dave Fleming, he is an internationally recognized executive, has worked in many companies to help transform their businesses, both here locally as well as across the world. And his strategic acumen has allowed him to be a big part of helping teams and businesses grow. He also loves spending time with his family, loves the outdoors. So Dave, welcome, and share for you personally, what does it mean to be built to win?
Yeah, thanks, Amber. And I would totally agree with everything that Deb and Jeff have said. And for me, being built to win is a mindset more than it is a skill set. And I took a more conventional route into leadership positions. I went to college, got my BS, went back, earned my MBA, learned a lot of fantastic skills. And what I learned in the real world, if you could, so to speak, is as you get out and you're starting to experience business and solve problems, that these skills will prepare you to address problems and to find solutions. But the skills, you can't really teach the skill of leadership. And for me, being built to win really does come down to leadership. And if you look at what is leadership, which I do believe you can learn, I don't believe that leaders are necessarily born. I think that people can learn to be leaders and learn to be built to win. But really, when you come down and you look at what is it to lead, what does it mean? And I think Jeff said it really, really well, is to be able to get somebody to do something that they wouldn't do if you're not there. That really comes down to, believing that you can solve the problem that comes up. And in business, really, success in business, whether you want to admit it or not, success in business really comes down to solving problems. And are you willing to step up and solve a problem that you may not feel ready for? You may not feel like you have the skills and you haven't been prepared for, but in your mind, like, you are the leader, you have to, like, it's up to you to step up and step into that problem, find the solution, knowing you're not going to maybe be perfect in every effort, in every endeavor, but that's part of it. That experience, that willingness to step up and step into that role is really what makes someone, and us as a team, because I think I see that in all of us individually and collectively, is that we are willing to step up and step into whatever challenge and find a solution. And like Deb said, we're not running around freaking out because, oh no, this is a problem. No, that's what leaders do, is people look to us, look to leadership to say, what are we going to do? And we have to be willing to step up and step into that. That's what makes us built to win.
So, so true. And I always remember the saying of that your paycheck is commensurate with the level of problems that you can solve. And so it's definitely true. And you don't get there accidentally, right? So achieving anything really big comes with adversity, whether that's in sports and business, really anything. And I think it's how you deal with those moments of adversity that set you apart, how you deal with when life gets hard, when business gets hard. And as a leadership team, for those of you that aren't familiar with our story, we just walked through a really hard, big, gargantuan thing. Jeff talked about it being one of the most significant things in American history that happened in business. I would agree with that. And it's something that no other executive team has ever successfully walked through prior to us doing it, which for me, I think I kind of knew that in the back of my mind as we were walking through it. That was a fact, but I never really fully internalized and processed it until it was over. And I remember sitting at dinner. We were at a celebratory dinner after we walked through this thing. It was a 7-year thing that was finally over, and we successfully walked through it. And for whatever reason, in that moment, we're all cheersing and talking. It just fully hit me. How is it that we did something that no one else was ever in the history of business able to do? Like, it really kind of blew my mind. And why? Why is that? Because there's other teams, other companies that were bigger and had more resources than us that had certainly been in the same situation. So what made this situation different? What made us different? And I think one of the answers that came to me was really the people, right? It was this team and kind of a catalyst of why we wanted to share our experience with each of you, because we really believe that, it's not that we're individually, super special people, but how we came together as a team and the work that we've put in through our lives to become the leaders we are today is something that is worth sharing, so that other people can apply that to whatever the hard thing is that you're going to walk through. Because the thing is that those things, as we mentioned, those hard things are going to happen. And I think for me, one of the things that allowed me personally to walk through this really hard thing was walking through other hard things previously. I think that the shock and awe of this, of the very first really terrible thing that happens to you in business, is the hardest, right? I remember, and we'll have podcasts for days on the other hard things that we walked through in our journey. This was certainly not the first. And so I think that's just a great perspective, because sometimes as an entrepreneur, you're building something, you're wanting this straight line to the top, right? And it seems like it's right when you get in this full flow. I remember for us, one of the biggest, hardest things happened right after we had been named Inc. 500's fastest growing company of the year, right? I mean, at that point, you think, I've got everything figured out. This is a straight line to the top. And then boom, you're hit with these things that kind of you don't see coming. They shock you, they awe you. And in that moment, you're like, oh, if only that hadn't happened, we would be at this revenue. We would be at this level of success. And then looking back, it's like, all of those things happen for a reason, and allowed each of us and allowed our employees, our sales force, to build this resiliency that truly would not have been there had those other hard things not have happened. And so I think for me, one of the things that led to us being able to walk through this is walking through other hard things. So if you're out there walking through a hard thing, know that it's not just something that happened to you, it's happening for you, and that you're going to be developing resiliency and skill sets and mindset and all of these things that are going to serve you down the road. And so I think that that's just an important kind of perspective to have in business, is walking through one hard thing is going to allow you to be better at walking through the really big things that end up mattering. So I want to ask each of you, like we've all talked about, you can't become ready for battle in that moment. When it happens, it's not like, oh, everyone look around and let's figure out how to be ready. It's really a collection of decisions and habits and things that you've gone through that allow you to be ready in that exact moment. So for Deb, for you, what do you think are some of the things, habits, mindset work, whatever it is, that allowed you to be ready in that moment to lead through the hard time?
For me, one of the biggest things is, having that personal philosophy that Jeff talked about earlier in the podcast. For me, that personal philosophy centers around a couple things. The first one is being present. And what I mean by that is you have to be where you are. I mean, you mentioned just a second ago, Amber, about how if this hadn't have happened, we'd be here. If this hadn't happened, we'd be there, blah, blah. It doesn't matter, because you are where you are and you're starting from where you're starting, and you have to be able to go forward. One of the things I like to share with my team, or with the team, our teams all the time, is we're not going to get to our goal in a straight line, right? You have to have the philosophy of you're going to get to the goal, but you might zig and zag while you're on the way there. But to but you know where you are right now, and you have to start from where you are. You can't start from where you wish you were. You can't start from where you thought you were going to be. You can't start from, where you should be. None of that matters. You have to start from where you are. So knowing your position, where you are, knowing the facts on the ground, and having a really clear goal in mind, because that's the other thing from a personal philosophy. I think particularly when it comes to leading or managing, you have to know where you're going. If you don't know, no one else does either, right? This is not, we're gonna stumble along and somehow magically the company's gonna grow, or we're gonna get through some challenge. And this is true in personal life too. You're not magically going to save for retirement, right? Planning, all of that requires goal setting of some level, but you're probably not going to get there in a straight line. It's not a map out. If I go to start in high school, I go to college, I'm going to go get my MBA, and then I'm going to get the perfect job. That's not the way the world works. So the way the world really works is you have to work on your own mindset in order to achieve those things. So, Jeff and I are co-founders of Live Happy. We're a big part of that. Personal philosophy on that is really critical to me. And that really is that happiness is a choice. You have to choose to be happy. And when we talk about choosing to be happy, it's choosing to be who you are, be congruent with who you are, be congruent with your values, choose to be happy. And if you can be yourself, have that truth, live that happy life, you're going to make decisions congruent with your goals, and you're going to achieve the things that you didn't think you could achieve. A lot of people think once I do this, this, and this, I'm going to somehow magically appear at my end goal, whatever that is. I'm going to get the house, the spouse, the job, the wealth, whatever it is I'm looking for. And then I'll work on myself, because then I'll have time. The opposite's true. You work on yourself, and then those things start to arrive. Be present where you are, continue to work on yourself, discover who you are, know where you're going, and get moving. Because that's how you prepare. You know all of that stuff, you're prepared. You're prepared when it hits. You have to know your personal priorities. I think I know this for every person on this call, and for virtually everybody in the world, it is unlikely that work is your first priority, right? It's God, it's family, it's health, whatever it is, there's something else. That's okay. It's still in your priorities, because work is part of your goals, right? That's how you get what you want in the rest of life. That's how you fulfill your priorities. So focusing on discovering who you are, what makes you happy, and I don't mean ice cream, roller coaster, woo, this is the best thing ever happy. I mean, what makes you feel like you're being the person you're meant to be, happiness? Work on that. And when you work on that consistently over time, Jeff, in his great book, The Slight Edge, read 10 pages of a good book a day, listen to a 20-minute podcast a day, do something to improve yourself, to put good thoughts and good ideas in your head. Do that. Work on yourself every day. Be present where you are, know where you're going, and get moving. That's, really in a nutshell, how I approach challenges. And then when challenges show up, all of those things kind of, I don't want to say minimize the giganticness, the hugeness of the challenge, because you know where you're going. You have to those things minimize it, make it manageable, make it bite-sized. You know what I mean? And so that's really important. Make it bite-sized so that you can attack it, because nobody wants to. That big gargantuan thing can be overwhelming if you don't have the groundwork already laid and you don't know where you're going.
Yes. So true. And that comes down to you as a leader and your fortitude and resiliency. So all of those things, I definitely lead to being that type of leader. Jeff, how about for you? What are some of the things that you feel like you did, or habits you had, that allowed you in that moment to be ready for battle?
I think my whole life, to a certain degree, prepared me. I'm not somebody who was given pretty much anything, and I've had to work my way up and into everything I did, and work my way through it, and then eventually work my way to the top. Never did I consider myself the smartest person in the room, or anything extraordinary. But I was one thing. I was very consistent. I was very persistent. I used to say, when you're sleeping, I'm thinking. Okay. But with that said, back to what I said earlier, mindset's so important. You're gonna hear that word a lot from us, but it really is. I mean, if things aren't working, and we have a tendency to focus on the activities, and it's really not the activity, it's how we're doing the activities, and that comes from your philosophies and that type of thing. And I've had a saying that I have a lot of different sayings that guide me, that I lean into to keep me thinking right. Because, if you understand how your brain works, 90% of it's your subconscious. It doesn't think. It's a slave to your conscious brain. It'll do whatever conscious brain tells it to do. And if you don't tell it what you want, or you don't express an attitude towards it, guess what it does? It lets everything in. So that means you're gonna let all the negative people in, all the negative content on TV in, just your negative thoughts, your fear, all those type of things. Versus if you have the right, attitudes and philosophies in you, your subconscious brain will block the things that don't serve you and let in the things that do serve you. It's a very important part. That's why prayer works. That's why dream boards work. That's why meditation works. And that's why affirmations work, because you are consciously, with your conscious brain, telling your subconscious brain what you want. So things like this, I always said, I tell those people all the time, quit wanting what you don't want. What I mean by that, because everybody wants it to be easy. And if it was easy, everybody would do it. See, successful people just do what unsuccessful people are not willing to do. When you have that mindset, what does your subconscious brain do? It starts getting you to do things other people are not willing to do. When you say, quit wanting what you don't want, it also, you start realizing the path, like Deb said, from here to go to here isn't a straight line. It's a bunch of things. And really, quite honestly, the journey was way more important than the destination, the goal. People always think it's that one big thing. It's not that. It's the journey you're on. So for me, what I've found to a certain degree, when you are leading a bunch of people, you can't be lonely. And a lot of times you have to make a lot of decisions by yourself, just by yourself. And you got to sit there and you got to think. And if you don't have that program in your brain right, you will go down the path of negativity, and it will not serve you well. You may have heard this before. I think it was Abraham Lincoln. I think he was the one who said it. He said, if I had 6 hours to chop down a tree, I spend 4 hours sharpening my axe and 2 hours chopping down the tree, meaning I'd work on me more than I'd work on it. Okay. And so with that, what I have seen all too often is people have a tendency to live life with the moment, what's happening in the moment. They straddle it. They have 1 foot in the past. Oh, if that had only been different, this would be this way. Or 1 foot in the future. Only if that changes, then I'll have this. Versus being in the moment, because the only thing you have now, take any goal you have. Like our goal was to win this battle that we were in, that nobody ever gone forth on. But it could be a career path. It could be any obstacle you're going on. Any person, you have dreams, you have aspirations. That's something it's drawing you into the future. But the only way you achieve those things is by the things that you do in the moment. And most of the things you do in the moment, when you're doing them in the moment, are insignificant compared to the goal. So you start thinking they really don't matter when they're the only thing that matters. Okay. And so I really do believe that one of the biggest things you have to do as a leader, and to get and lead people through these things and lead yourself through these things, is consistency and persistency and living in the moment. And you have to recognize the fact that many of those times in that moment, you're by yourself. 80-90% of stuff you do, you're by, you have a company, you have a team, but you're really by yourself. And for me, I think have built a belief in myself that not knowing what the outcome was going to be, I would find the outcome that what I wanted it to be. If you understand what I'm saying there. I knew I was going to get there. I just didn't quite know how I was going to get there. But I knew I wasn't going to get there. I kept dreaming about getting there. I had to start chipping away every single day. And that's one thing we did. We stayed together as a team. We locked arms. But it was thousands and thousands of simple decisions in a moment, or to a certain degree insignificant, but the accumulation more time allowed us to win. Okay. So I mean, for me, more than anything else, I'm always trying to get people around me to believe where we're going is right. The only way you can really get belief in relationships with people is through communication and connection. And are you doing that with your people? Because that's how you start building your team, your Super Bowl team. Is going to allow you to win the Super Bowl, whatever that's going to look like. And so, again, I say to myself all the time, every time I run into something, I just go, successful people do what unsuccessful people are not willing to do. With that being burnt into my subconscious brain, I constantly lean towards the things that other people run away from. Mm-hmm. And that's why you have success, because you're not running away from things that you need to be running towards, okay? Because that's how it looks. And it can be messy. It can really be messy sometimes, okay? But it's like anything. If you just spilt a bunch of spaghetti on the floor, this is a stupid example, I'm making it up now, but it's a mess. But you're going to pick it up a noodle at a time, is what I'm saying, okay? And eventually you'll be clean, or else you sit there and fret about it and complain about it. That's what we didn't do. I always, every single night when I went to bed, the last thing I thought about was winning. First thing I thought about when I got in the morning was winning, okay? And I never stopped and never quit going forward. And anybody around us knew, wow, these guys are going to take this battle on, and they are going to go fight to win. We haven't seen anybody do it successfully yet. They most certainly are running away from it. They're running towards it. And that was a big thing. We didn't run away. We ran towards it.
So true. A lot of times I think the breakthrough for companies, for people, are on the other side of the hard things that they don't want to go through. So they never end up getting the breakthrough, getting that big momentum, because like you mentioned, they run away as soon as they encounter something they don't want to walk through. I don't think any of us here wanted to walk through what we wanted to walk through. We never have picked that journey, but on the other side of it, we've had so many cool things come together that seem just like it was always meant to be this way. So Dave, you joined us in the middle of this battle. And, for a lot of people around you, I think probably thought, what is he doing? What is he thinking? Because this could be a decision career-wise that might be quote unquote risky. So what allowed you to be the kind of person that was able to see the opportunity, see the bigger picture in a scenario where most people might not?
That is a great question. And I wish I could point to one specific thing and say, here's the secret to doing what you want to in life, and being, understanding when to take risks and when not to take risks. I don't have that. I don't have that silver bullet or magic wand where I can share with people what it is exactly. But I think, as Jeff said, and Deb also said, it's a culmination of a lot of things that lead up to certain moments in your life. And if you think back, I think everybody has those. I think everybody, regardless of your background, regardless of your education, regardless of, anything in your background, I think everybody has those moments that you can, when you start to think about it intentionally, you can start to identify what those moments are, what those skills are that you've learned over your lifetime. And I think the key thing is like Jeff said, it's mentally being willing to step up. And when you have an experience that's challenging, and I have to admit, like early on in my career, like I wanted things to be easy. Like Jeff said, I wanted things to be easy. I think most people want things to be easy. It's kind of human nature. And when you seek the easy way and you're looking for the path of least resistance, you'll recognize you really don't accomplish anything truly significant, because you're not faced with challenges. And as we've talked about, challenges is what success in business is really all about. The bigger the challenge, the bigger the paycheck, like you said, Amber. And so when I was looking at this company, when I was looking at joining this team, it wasn't that I was looking for the biggest challenge that I could solve. It wasn't that I was looking for the biggest pain that I could endure professionally. But I've always believed that when you're looking at something, you have to evaluate what is the upside of every opportunity. What is the risk that you're really putting out there? And sometimes that risk can be pretty scary. Sometimes that risk is, maybe is it your reputation? Is it a major career setback? Is it a failure in business? I mean, these are things that people stress over, and reasonably so. But you have to look at the upside. And some of the biggest wins I've had in my career are from recognizing risk and being willing to take on some risk that maybe some other people wouldn't be willing to do. And I can't say that it's always worked out. I don't think anybody can say that every decision they've made has always been for the better. But when I was looking at this team, and really what it comes down to is, is this team a team that I believe in, not just professionally, but also as individuals? Are they who they say they are? Do they do what they say they will do? And if it's a team that is aligning with my personal principles, and is a team that I recognize is operating with integrity and operating with trust and respect, then that's the foundation for making a good decision. And if you have those things, then you can really take that next step and say, okay, I can align with the people that are taking on whatever challenge that is that we're facing. And if I can align with the people, then I can really look at the challenge itself and say, is this challenge overcomable, if that's a word? And if it is, what is on the other side of that? And so when I was looking at this is really this thought process that I went through, is that yes, this is a big challenge. Like you said, Amber, this is something that no one has ever done before. So is it a large challenge? Yeah, it's literally pioneering in a space that no one has ever been able to break through. So yeah, it's a big deal. But are the people that I'd be working with, can I trust them? Are they people who say that they are that do what they say they're going to do and lead the way that I would lead if it were me? And the answer to that was a definite yes. And I think that's the foundation for taking that next step. And so then it's, okay, now evaluate what is on the other side of this. And if you can do something that no one has ever done before, you have to believe that the upside to that is an upside that no one has ever experienced before. So yeah, I think there were a lot of people that looked at my decision to come here and said, what are you doing? Like, really, like, why would you make that decision? Are you could go a lot of different places that would be easier. And I'm not necessarily looking for easy. I'm looking for significant. I'm looking for, what is that moment that you're going to take that challenge in your life and make a decision. Yeah, maybe externally it looked risky, but I also understand not everybody knew what I knew. Not everybody had seen the inside workings like I had seen. So in my mind, yeah, it was a risk. There was some risk to that decision, but it wasn't on the level that maybe people perceived it was. And ultimately it was a decision to do something that potentially could be something that no one has ever done before. And, and in my case, personally, it worked out. So
and here we are.
we are. Yeah. So it looked great. I looked pretty clever for making that decision.
You are clever.
I am clever. Yes. Thank you.
I love that. I wasn't looking for easy. I was looking for significance. I think that's really, really key. I always think about it in terms of, you either live for impact or you live to avoid criticism, and those are at odds with each other. And so that is definitely true. And I also think your advice about really diving deep into the values of the people that you align yourself with is key advice. Some of our big hard things prior to this one was all rooted in aligning with people who didn't have the same values as us. So I can attest that that is very great advice, sound advice there. So this was a 7-year battle, and kind of how we've alluded to. And if you're wondering, are they ever going to tell us what actually happened? The answer is yes. We'll get to that. But this was a 7-year battle. As we've mentioned, I was kind of, I like to be inspired by quotes, and I was looking for quotes, and there's, the one about, oh, the road less traveled. And it really hit me that this was not the road less traveled. This was the road untraveled. Nobody had traveled down this road successfully. So as we're going through this, we really didn't have anything to point to say, here's the playbook, here's an example. See, they did it, we can too, right? We are literally pioneering something that hadn't been done before successfully. And it was for a long period of time, 7 years from start to finish, which takes a lot of mental fortitude. It takes a lot of resiliency. I think it's why other people maybe backed away, settle, don't take the same road that we did, because they just didn't have the fortitude and resiliency to walk that battle for that length of time. So in this closing question, Deb and Jo, and I'm going to start with you, Deb, what are some things that you did throughout this battle, throughout this 7 years, that kept you going and allowed you to continue to find joy and happiness in life, even while walking through this hard thing for such a long amount of time?
It was a long time. And I have to say the thing that probably got me through it the most. And there's a couple things that got me through it the most. The first thing really wasn't in it alone, right? I had Jo, I had you, Dave came along later, but there were other people that were involved in the Great Battle that, we were in it together. And so every now and then we'd look at each other and go, are we crazy? But, the answer was always no, we're not crazy. And that hinged on the second piece, which allowed which carried the fortitude forward, I think, for all of us, which is that we knew we were right. So being right doesn't always mean that you're going to win, but it certainly gives you the courage to stay in the fight and do the right thing. It wasn't just that we were right; it was the right thing to do. And when we talk about the bigger issue, this Goliath of a challenge that we faced, we get into that in a lot more detail. But we were doing it not just because we were right, but we were doing it for the right reasons. It was going to benefit a lot of people if we won the fight, and it was going to hurt a lot of people if we lost the fight. And just knowing the level of people that were depending on us, I think it really gave us no question that we had to continue. We had to. For me, it was never a matter of should we or shouldn't we. It was always a matter of how, which allowed us to keep going through. But in addition to that, a 7-year battle is a long fight, and it wasn't the only thing going on. As people may remember from our introductions, we have a company to run, and two companies to run between Live Happy and Neora, and we have a lot of people depending on us for those, and a lot of our employees and in our field and everything we've got there. We had a lot of other things we had to do, so it really was do what you need to do, make the decisions you need to make today, and move on and focus on the other things that are important in life. I have three children, 2 teenagers and a preteen right now. And, they were little effectively when this started. None of my kids were even in middle school when we started this. Now I've got one who's graduating next year, but they are the most important thing in the world. My family is the most important thing in the world to me. So keeping in mind that there are joys and other things going on in life while you're fighting the fight. Do what you need to do, but then get back to living your life and doing the other things that are important. Because there's so many other things, that are important. And there's so many other life changes I know that occurred for all of us during this battle. And resiliency is really doing the things you need to do and staying focused on your goals and knowing that you're not always going to get there in a straight line. And you just having the habits and the knowledge and the experience to have lived through things before, I think, is what got us there. And we lived through things as a team, and I'd lived through things individually. I was chuckling earlier when you were talking about big mistakes.
Yeah.
Because we've all made them. I remember when first time I was a vice president in my life, I was 28 years old, and I made a mistake that cost the company a couple $100,000. And at the time, I had a CEO who sat me down and said, look, if that's the biggest mistake you ever make, you're going to do all right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Scale, it was a multi-million dollar company, but you're terrified, but you learn from those things. You make mistakes, things happen, and that builds your resiliency. And we've been through so much as a team already. That really is what kept me going. And then, of course, my family's where I find joy, getting outside, taking that fly fishing vacation, or going skiing, or just going out for a Saturday golf outing, making sure you don't forget to do the things that actually bring you joy, and
Right.
that you have to. You can't allow it to consume you. You
Right.
don't want to be that person.
Yes, definitely. And for those 7 years, Deb's children got older, mine came into the world. So I had 3 kids during this entire experience. I became a new mom, a mom to 2, a mom to 3. And so definitely, there is, anytime you're a business owner, an entrepreneur, it doesn't have to be, the level of what we walk through. It could be a down year of sales. It could be a key team member leaving. It could be criticism from somebody. There's things that can consume you if you let them. And so I think that just having that perspective is key, like you talked about, Deb. I think also, same as you, one of the things that kept me going was my community of people. You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time around. And a lot of times that's said in the context of, oh, make sure, you're not spending time with the wrong people. They'll pull you down. And yes, that is for sure true. But at the same time, you don't want it to just be, are those 5 people who aren't going to pull you down? It's like, are those 5 people the kind of people that are able to lift you up? Because you're going to have times in your life where you need that from them. So, people that you have that deep-seated trust and respect with. So my family, my core close group of friends, and core a close group of coworkers. We had a really amazing group of team, both here in the home office and in our sales force, that stood by us. And so being able to lean on each other, like you said, definitely made a huge difference. And I think the last component for me was just my faith. I prayed and just every day, and kept a deep-seated faith that I wasn't walking through this alone, because this was a bet the company, bet our family reputation, bet the future of my girls' decision to walk through. And so that faith component for me was that final part of the stool that held me up, to know that I just always felt that we were doing the right thing. We were going to make an impact, and that this was going to be used for something much bigger than just myself or my family. So, Jo, for you, what kept you going? What are the things that you did that kept you going during these 7 years to still keep going and find joy in life along the way?
Both you and Deb put it very, very, very well. But I have to start with, you need to believe in yourself and believe that you're right. And we did that. We really believed in who we were as a company, how we did things, and we were right. And we're willing to defend that when that's a very daunting task. But also for me, knowing that, all hundreds and hundreds of employees and thousands of people around the world, and millions of people actually around the world, would be affected by this in a positive or negative way. It was going to go it wasn't going to be neutral. It was going to be devastating for an industry, or it was going to be good for an industry. And so it was a fight worth fighting. And it was almost like a fight that we were put in there to fight, because we're the one company that was capable of doing it. And so for me, I always get kind of some humor when I see on TV somebody who did something wrong and now they're going to court. And when you see the pictures beforehand, they dress bad, they don't look good, they act bad. They show up in court in a real nice suit, haircut perfectly. And that's not how you fix things. When you all of a sudden get right, and the problem, you have to have been right all along. Okay. And so for us, I believe we're a company of values, and like we have our 10 corporate values. I believe I'm always looking for character. I'm looking for integrity, and I'm driven by purpose and meaning. And so when those truly are your values that you're kind of cooking in your subconscious brain, then you'll track things around that. I agree. I leaned into prayer, faith a lot. Okay. And found it very gratifying, very satisfying. And that grew. It was amazing how the prayer groups grew and grew and grew and grew around the world. That's just a part of having a positive mindset. And we did that. Another thing for me is I just purposely simplified and minimized my life. I shrunk it, and doesn't mean I eliminate things that are fun for me, like Deb was speaking to, but I just started eliminating things that didn't need to be resolved now, or didn't need to happen now. I'm going to focus on the things that mattered. The things that mattered was this, okay, but then also you got to keep the company going, okay. And one thing I was so proud of as a company, with this massive distraction and massive time you had put into it, all the resources given to it, and all the emotions. There's a neat thing I heard in a health book once. They say you have trillions of cells, and every cell hears every emotion you have. Okay, so you got to be careful what are those emotions you're sending your way. But through all that, we kept working. We kept having our management meetings, our quarterly planning sessions, and we kept making our list and delivering those quarterly plans to our staff. And that we did the same thing with our field. We never quit being who we were building the company. And it was a very historical company. The growth of our company in its original years was one of the most significant in the history of a very large industry. But we didn't stop that. So in essence, why I say simplify, minimize, because I needed to really dedicate the time to that and to the challenge we're up against. But the one thing that was real important is people are looking at you all the time, trying to read you. And I'll never forget a conversation I had. Through this whole thing, there was a lot of lawyers involved. Okay, I think around 25 from a very significant firm, and the head. There was a couple of head ones, different parts, but the head litigator. I remember he's saying to me, because we had a meeting and we'd gone through a lot of stuff. Okay, and I sat down with him and was talking to him, and he says, "I realized in that moment that you were going to go all the way. You weren't going to quit." And he says, I spent 30 years seeing people never do that. Okay. And he says, I went back and I called a meeting of all the team. I sat down and said, they're going to go all the way. We better get our act together. Okay. And so, and think about that. And he said it was a very emotional time for them because they all went, oh my gosh, we need to take our game up because these guys aren't going to back down from the Goliath that they're facing. And so, it was important that they saw us constantly working our business, building a company. They saw us never question that we weren't right. I mean, and it took them it took them over a year. It took about a year and a half for them to really realize we were right because they don't know. We're saying, no, here's the facts, here's the data, here's the information. We're right. Okay. But they're seeing you're about ready to fight a Goliath that they've never even done themselves. Okay. Because is that significant? And then they started believing we were right. So if we'd have been just a little bit shaky at the top, then that would have just gone to like an earthquake at the bottom. It was very important as a leadership team that we are a rock. And we projected that to our staff. We projected that to the field. We projected that to our legal team. We projected that everywhere we're at, that we were right. We're going to do this. We're going to come out positive on the other end. And this is going to be a good thing for everybody. That was where my mindset was. For me to have the joy was just, again, I minimized my life. I took it down to the core value things that were important to me. I didn't add things. I try to keep, like I said, I wrote down simplify and minimize. That's the one that I did back then, because I really knew I just had to focus all my energy and attention on this. And now, to a certain degree, looking back, it was quite an amazing journey, because quite honestly, we now have a bigger light than we've ever had as a company. We have more significance than we've ever had as a company. We have more influence than we ever had as a company. And because of that, we're able to do what we always started out this company. We started this company with around 3 words: make people better. And, although this going through this battle didn't look like a blessing, it was going to also do it better. But now we have more significance. We have more influence. We have more, recognition to live up to our mission, which is make people better and do it through our 10 core values. And so I'll just say, it was, for me, simplifying and leaning into who I am, leaning into who we are, and keeping focused on the ball and never wavering once at the top, because I really believe you waver the top, by the time it gets down a couple of levels, it's going to be disastrous. Okay. And so that's what we did. The team did it very, very well together. Very well.
Well, I think that is the perfect segue to speak about the next episode, because you're going to want to tune into that, because we're going to finally reveal what this Goliath was, what this huge undertaking, historical, unprecedented, pioneering experience was that we accomplished together as a team. And this is the very first time that we are publicly going on the record as a team to share all of the details and our personal and professional experience through taking on this Goliath and ultimately coming out completely victorious. But it was a journey, and it's one that I think you will be very captivated by, but also learn a lot from. So we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode of Built to Win, you don't want to miss what's coming next. In the next 2 episodes, you'll hear Neora founder Jeff Olson explain the David versus Goliath battle he suddenly found himself in, and learn why he and his leadership team refused to back down. To make sure you don't miss a minute of Built to Win, be sure and hit subscribe wherever you download your favorite podcasts. And while you're there, be sure to give us a review to let others know what you think.